To whom it may concern. My family moved to the North Fork Valley in 1947. We've owned and operated a 50-acre farm in the Midway area between Paonia and Hotchkiss for more than 60 years. Our farm borders parcel 6195. Here's the Boland farmhouse, this red dot right here. The Boland farm is outlined in black and includes all of this area. It's 50 acres. Just across the property line here is BLM land, which is the southeasternmost part of parcel 6195. The BLM claims to manage public lands under the principles of multiple use and sustained yield. Multiple use requires management of the public lands so that they can be used for economic, recreational, and scientific purposes without the infliction of permanent damage. It's past doubt that the principle of multiple use does not require the BLM to prioritize development over other uses. A parcel of land cannot both be preserved in its natural character and mined. The obligation to manage for multiple use does not mean that development must be allowed. Development is a possible use, which the BLM must weigh against other possible uses, including conservation to protect environmental values. An alternative that closes an area to development does not necessarily violate the principle of multiple use. I have many concerns about the proposed lease sale. Hydraulic fracturing is a technique used by the oil and gas industry to improve the efficiency of gas wells. The Environmental Protection Agency has concluded that fracking fluids used with gas production in Pavilion, Wyoming resulted in the contamination of groundwater. The EPA found detection of high concentrations of benzene, xylenes, gasoline range organics, diesel range organics, and total purgeable hydrocarbons in groundwater samples indicates that fracking pits are a source of shallow groundwater contamination. The Sunshine Mesa Domestic Water Company has supplied domestic water to my farmhouse for more than 50 years. 24 families depend on the water company for their drinking water. The water source is a spring on parcel 6195. Hydraulic fracturing is a process which uses high hydraulic pressures by pumping a thick water-based fluid into the seam at gradually increasing rate until a fracture in the rock occurs. The hydraulically induced fracture may connect with natural formations, which may allow the movement of fracturing fluids into underground sources of drinking water. Only 61% of the fracking fluids are recovered after injection, leaving 39% to leak off, with the potential to contaminate underground drinking water sources. My farm and adjoining farms are homes to livestock, including cattle, horses, sheep, and goats. There are also numerous orchards, truck farms, and vineyards throughout the North Fork Valley. The area has a long and rich agricultural history. I rely on irrigation water from the Fire Mountain Canal to make my farm fertile. The Fire Mountain Canal originates from the North Fork of the Gunnison River, which is fed by the Paonia Reservoir. Many of the parcels proposed for oil and gas lease sale border the reservoir and the Fire Mountain Canal. contaminated fracking water poses a risk to agriculture because product water from fracking has a high salinity hazard and a very high sodium hazard. The parcels proposed for oil and gas lease sale are composed of steep hillsides. Disruption to the surface estate from the construction of roads for the trucks and other heavy equipment associated with oil and gas exploration would result in erosion, which is a particular concern of mine. The Wake Fire of July 1994 decimated the cedar forest on large portions of the BLM land which surround my farm. The forest has not grown back, and the land is extremely fragile and susceptible to erosion. Every day from October until March, deer and elk traverse my pasture in search of food and water. My land and the adjoining BLM parcels are prime deer and elk habitat and hunting grounds. Development will cause a substantial change in the migratory patterns of this wildlife. The North Fork Valley is noted for Mount Lamborn, the highest point in Delta County. The vista from my farm is across the valley to Mount Lamborn and Land's End. Gas development would mar this scenic landscape at day as a result of the roads, drilling pads, and rigs, and at night by way of the associated bright lights.
Senator Schwartz, I hope you were in the North Fork Valley last night. If you were, you might have looked into the sky and seen the trio of Jupiter, the waxing crescent moon, and Mars. The firmament is so clear and so bright here that some people think the North Fork Valley is the center of the universe.
Proposed development also encompasses Mount Jumbo. It's a favorite recreational site for hikers and trail runners and a substantial tourist attraction for mountain bikers. Oil and gas development would destroy those recreational uses. The BLM's proposal to lease 30,000 acres of public lands in the North Fork Valley for oil and gas development threatens both a treasured landscape and a traditional way of life. Sound stewardship of the land compels that the BLM consider the catastrophic impact of the proposed leases on the people whose livelihoods and vitality depend on the sustainability of the land and adopt a no development alternative. Sincerely, Boyd and Boland.
Make everything brighter. Up in the mountains, there's a town that nobody knows about it. In this town, everybody's happy.
I'm Barb Sharrow, and I'm the field manager for the Uncompahgre Field Office. We got over 3,000 emails. We got 300 to 400 substantive letters. We were just inundated. Resource management plan back in 1985, we made the decision that the parcels that were nominated for lease were leasable. I think most of it is fear. Most people are very, very afraid that if there's even one gas well, it's going to completely destroy all three communities.
The BLM didn't listen to my letter. On March 7, 2012, it issued a finding that the gas leases would have no significant impact on the quality of life in the North Fork Valley. So now I'm writing another letter, disputing the BLM's finding of no significant impact and asking that it deny the request for leases. The struggle continues.
Somewhere in Colorado, pretty she's waiting for me. Somewhere in Colorado, across that Salt Lake Sea. I met my baby under the sun. I kissed my baby under